Professor Laxmidhar Behera, and Professor Behera is a very renowned personality in the field of artificial intelligence and robotics. Dr. Laxmidhar Behera is Poonam and Prabhu Goel Chair Professor at IIT Kanpur. He has research and teaching experience of more than 25 years. He has received the BSc Engineering and MSc Engineering degrees from NIT Rourkela and a PhD degree from IIT Delhi in 1996. He is one of the pioneers in the field of AI-based autonomous robotics. His work lies in the convergence of machine learning, control theory, robotics vision, and heterogeneous robotic platforms. He has published more than 250 papers in journals and conference proceedings. He is a fellow of INAE and senior member of IEEE. He is one of the technical committee members on robotics. So let us invite Professor Behera for today's wonderful session. So Professor Behera, the floor is for you now.
Okay, so thank you, Prem Kishore Prabhu. Thank you. His name is Mr. Parveen Kumar, who is organizing these lovely programs for the benefit of many enthusiastic seekers on behalf of Institute of Science and Spirituality, ISS. So I'm going to speak to the levels of consciousness, and if I make this in slide mode, are you able to see the slides? Okay, so that's, are you able to see this change of slide? Prem Kishore Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu, I can see.
What is written in the slide?
This is coming in two windows actually.
Actually, it has gone into presenter mode. It has gone into presenter mode, sir. So if you could change to presentation, I mean the proper way of presentation.
What you are seeing in the slide?
We are seeing the presentation, but both.
Philosophy of consciousness, it is mentioned. Philosophy of consciousness.
Okay, good. So that's all I want.
But sir, you have to put it into a slideshow mode, because it is showing two slides. One is the next slide and another one is the slide which you are presenting.
It's in the slide mode only. This is it's not coming in the proper mode.
It is showing actually two slides. One is the slide which you are going to explain, and then the next slide is already visible.
Wait. So this is that fine?
No, it is. Yes, now okay.
Okay.
But it again got changed. Yes, okay. Yes. Perfect.
Okay, thank you. So thank you all the participants who are present here, and before I start, the levels of why this is, what are you doing there? Are you changing something? Then why my slide is not changing? What is that? Okay. So before I start, I have a question for all of you. And I would like all of you uh, to make some comments on the chat box. Suppose there is no language, what you are going to do? Imagine language didn't exist. What would have happened to you? How the world would have communicated? Okay? I hope the question is clear. Um, the question is, if there is no language, no Hindi, no English, no Spanish, no Deutsch, no Chinese, no Japanese, nothing, no language. So what would have happened? That is the question. How the interaction or interactive communication would have taken place. So this is the question. And I would request Prem Kishore Prabhu to take note of some of the answers, put in a file and display whenever I say. And then again I would ask another question based on that answer, those answers. So,
Right, Guruji.
so the whole idea is that to be engaged during the discussion, and I don't want to make it monotonous. The unfortunate part is that we are doing this online thing. Normally in the classroom, I go directly and ask each and every one. So those kind of interaction is not possible. So given that limitation, so I have my own way to do it. And let's see how you react to the question that I have raised. And now let's move. Actually, first few slides will be same as I had talked in a previous ISS conference. So those who have attended, don't worry, we will have enough thing. But so philosophy of consciousness, according to Bhagavad Gita, means that which always exists, that which is immutable, indestructible, immovable, unbound, unweight. And consciousness is that in which there is no trace of ignorance. And it is always full of joy and knowledge. Obviously, very few may have an experience. It is there are seekers of truth all over the world. They have some experience of eternity, some experience of divine joy, some experience of knowledge bereft of ignorance. But normally, in a material sense, in physical realm, we can't have such experience. Neither you can manifest this experience in the laboratory or anywhere. So now the question is, why I selected the topic levels of consciousness? Because one of the intriguing topic in science is what is the source of everything, from where everything comes. And in this talk, I am going to tell you that it is consciousness that gives rise to everything. But this consciousness that I would be talking is completely different than most of you might have heard about consciousness. And my authenticity is based on Bhagavad Gita as it is, and my own pursuit of knowledge over last, 30, 40 years. So let's go to the next slide. So if you look at the current science, you see the current science is not really a science that is universal. The current science came from a backdrop of the revolution, not revolution, revolt against the church authority. Most of the time that happens, and so one of the things that the current science presupposes is that there is only energy. Energy cannot be created, cannot be destroyed. And this energy is very, very inert energy, inactive energy. So there are varieties of energies we encounter: mechanical energy, electrical energy, electromechanical energy, magnetic energy. So varieties of energies. So which is the most fundamental? That means, what is the original form of energy from which everything comes? So that's how people started this wave particle duality. Wave is energy, and particle, everything in gross manifestation has a particle behavior, right? It has certain weight, right? It has certain location, definitive location. But energy, the way in the form of wave, so the particle is also energy, wave is also energy, but wave doesn't have definitive location. It's a dispersive, and so the assumption is that in the beginning there was this dispersive energy in the form of wave, and that got transformed to particle nature somehow because of certain operation on these energy. The first particle, let's say an electron, came into picture. Okay. And then, of course, you can think of that how one particle gave rise to another particle, and then they combine, and then the most fundamental particle in the form of atom manifested, and atoms combine molecules, from molecules, complex molecules to organism, and then life forms came. So this is the kind of narrative that we have been listening, and at some point of time, even the young, inquisitive, and those who are reflective, they started challenging this notion: how is it that from everything inert could create so much of diversity, right? So that's something that is plaguing the current science, and most important aspect of the current science is that you cannot explain human psyche, that it is, if you say that everything is governed by cellular and atomic level description, then the psyche, the human desire, human thinking, because they are of secondary nature, emerging property. So they should be subservient to this primary nature of force. You apply a force and then there is displacement, right? So this kind of idea, then and socially also this is a big problem, because if you say that suppose somebody is depressed, it's molecular and and cellular level problem, and hence the person is depressed. You can also say somebody is stealing because of that. So how can you then say something is good or something is bad, something desirable, something not desirable? So current science doesn't allow in any way ethics within it. Ethics has no value within the current science. If you are wedded with the current science, so this is one of the problem. So so what is that original form? So the next slide. So the quest among the scientists is, what is that original form of energy that gives rise to all other variegated form of energy and variegated form of manifestation, right? And so this is the current take within science is it is quantum field that is the original form of energy, and that gives rise to everything else. Now if you look at Bhagavad Gita, we have three categories of energy. One is completely divine energy, that is eternal and full of diversity and infinite and all pervading. The other is material energy, that is inert, that is eternal also. And then there is a marginal energy. Marginal energy is according to Bhagavad Gita, is that energy which is very, very tiny but divine, eternal, but can be very well covered by material energy. So this is the Vedantic import. So such imports, of course, modern science cannot contemplate, because it is very much empiric, and empiric only in a materialistic sense, that using material senses, material equipments, you have to validate. So this is again a closedness of a science, because closedness, why? Because by saying that we believe in empiricism means we believe in what atomic force microscope can observe or Hubble telescope can observe, is very limiting, because there can be things that are not observable either by atomic force microscope or Hubble telescope or any giant telescope. So this is something that we have to recognize. So now there is something very common. Our founder Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada used to say that within science, we always, when we have an observation, we try to find the causal structure of that observation based on a subtle cause. More subtler is the cause, better explanative power you derive. So this is what is the selling point of the current science. So that is the naive observation makes no sense within science. You have to look at the subtler. Otherwise, if people would not have looked at that, then they could not have built the atomic bomb, because they could see there is hidden energy within the molecular bond or atomic structure. There are hidden energy and that can be tapped. So this subtler nature, subtler structure of behind an observation is certainly a contribution of modern science for even to spiritualists to appreciate. So our quest for subtlest form of matter is common in both the Vedantic worldview and the modern scientific view. I won't say here subtlest form of matter from Vedantic point of view, subtlest form of existence, I would say. That is Vedantic, whereas the modern science only looks at subtlest form of matter, because modern science is confined to materialism. So you cannot bring in the item of spiritualism within the materialism. So it's not possible, because they are two different diverse entity, mutually exclusive. So we must agree to an ontological form and structure of matter at some point. So however, matter also is described within Vedantic tradition. So in Bhagavad Gita, matter has been explained in many ways. So I'm not going to give expert commentary on Bhagavad Gita, because majority of you don't have, probably because this is your first time you are attending. So I'm not going to go deep into Bhagavad Gita, because that requires your training in Bhagavad Gita, your qualification to study Bhagavad Gita. So that is why I have refrained from directly speaking on Bhagavad Gita, because it requires certain qualification, certain prerequisite. So can we agree on an ontological form and structure of matter that is compatible to Vedantic view? That means, within science we can talk about ontological form and structure of matter that also agreeable within the Vedantic tradition. So what are the fundamental building blocks of nature? One of the big questions of science, the question that goes back to at least 2500 years to the ancient Greeks, starting from Aristotle, Plato, that is the modern scientific history. But science is eternal. You have to recognize this. Science is eternal. And the science that we talk about when I derive a sense of science, that tradition is eternal. The tradition in which I am trained to speak about science, that is eternal. But I am now giving a perspective of science that only 2500 year old at max. The tradition is only 2500 year old. But the genre of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Vedanta, Upanishads, they are eternal. So they don't have a time. So this is something that you have to understand. So But why I'm referring to 2500-year-old history, because that is what you have been taught from your standard 1 to standard whatever you are, graduate, postgraduate, PhD, post-PhD. This is all we have been learning. That is, we are following the tradition of last 2500 years, not the eternal a tradition that is eternal, and that is very unfortunate. We being born in India, we don't have our own tradition. So if you look at at some point of time when we started studying in chemistry in our intermediate science in 1981, I remember the truth of the world is periodic table. If an element is there in periodic table, that is the truth. Hydrogen, helium, lithium, potassium, calcium, silver, gold, copper, iron, everything, right? That's so. That's how you see and so this periodic table, you will be surprised to know that this periodic table, the Greeks at the beginning, they had a periodic table of 5 elements: earth, water, air, fire, ether. And nobody asked this question from where Greeks got these 5 elements: earth, water, air, fire, ether. And because they were not qualified to understand earth, water, air, fire, ether, so they divided earth, water, air, fire, ether. They didn't understand, and they cannot divide anyway. So taking these 5 elements, they slowly created this periodic element, and that's what and you have a theory now in chemistry, an element you can fit into periodic table as long as that element is stable, right? So you can synthesize an element in the laboratory, and if that element is stable, can stay for a long time, so then you can add that element to the periodic table. So basically, if somebody is super smart, probably this periodic table is going to expand like anything, right? So, but the point here is, can it be basic building block? Because basic building block means that should not be subjected to change. That should remain as it is from the day 1. And I am going to explain, when you say basic building block, what must be their property. So you just keep some patience and you will. But let me quote the scientists like Professor David Tang. According to him, that when we were taught the periodic table as the basic building block of this universe, everything is made up of these elements, anything, right? Then he said that we were being taught white lies. This is not true. They are not basic building block. So what are basic building block? Obviously, that question is certainly interesting, genuine question. And so then you will go to the history from Thomson to Rutherford to Bohr, Neil Bohr, and then the model of atom, and so that exploration suddenly brought in or shifted the idea of periodic table to the idea of two quarks and an electron, right? That means two quarks and electron, they combine together uh, to form. When you mix them in a different proportion, how many electrons, how many, two different nature of quarks, like protons and neutrons, right? And then different electronic configuration, that would result either a hydrogen or a helium or a nitrogen. So this electronic configuration, okay, so that means these periodic table had the elements of this periodic table can be derived from these two quarks and one electron. There are different mixtures. So the subject matter changed. Periodic table were displaced by three basic particles, one electron and two quarks. But that also was not. After some time, scientists realized that that's also not true. The fundamental reality is much more subtle and abstract, and they're fluid-like substances which are spread throughout the entire universe and ripple in strange and interesting ways named field. So you see that all our connection. You all have mobiles in your hand, so we are all connected through electromagnetic wave, right? And so field is something that takes a particular value at every point in space, and that value which can change in time. Studied from Michael Faraday, the idea of magnetic and electric field, and when people added quantum, then it became quantum field. And that and quantum field idea, when it comes, I don't want to give a physics lecture here, because I want to explain to you the basic motivation how to look at the nature, right? So that is what my job today is, and I don't know how well I can do this, because I have been teaching a course and so many different things. I really have not put a lot of effort into this, but let me tell you what is the basic building block of the universe as of now is known as a standard model of physics that consists of 17 fields and their corresponding particles. You can see there 4 by 4, and then there is Higgs boson. And this is the new periodic table, and these 17 fields together, and I'm pretty sure after some time this 17, who knows, can become also 1700, who knows, okay? So the very idea, this standard model, that is the standard model is now thought to explain every single experiment that we have done on Earth. But there is extra stuff which is still mystery, called dark matter, dark energy, inflation of the universe, and the first few fraction of the seconds after the Big Bang. So they go for new physics beyond the standard model, right? So if you, in a contemporary science, if you ask people what is the basic building block of this universe, they would talk about the standard model, where you can see here, there are this Z equal to all these fields: gravity, electromagnetism, strong force, weak force, matter, Higgs boson. So all this together, and they think that this equation is able to explain every variegated diversity within this universe. That's what. Unfortunately, they cannot explain all these things. So they cannot explain anything cognitive aspect of human existence. Unfortunately, right, all these things cannot explain simple cognitive aspect of human existence. Forget about human existence. Even cognitive aspect of an existence of a simple fruit fly. Simple fruit fly. Okay. So, but this is uh, so they so if you look at this current idea of what is the basic building block of the universe, in universe you have consciousness, right? You have consciousness, I have consciousness, all of us, we have consciousness. And so the but this consciousness is an emerging phenomenon. This is what is current science talks about. Within modern science, the origin is the inert energy, which gives rise to particles. Such particles make up complex molecules that in turn makes up living organism. So consciousness is an emerging phenomena of this syntactic process. Everything is syntactic, and suddenly ethics comes into picture. And unfortunately, everything is syntactic. Why the world marries to the idea of ethics? Why there should be a police system? Why there should be any idea of morality or immorality? Right? But this is the conflict when you follow the tradition of 2500 years of science. So now what must be the basic building block of this universe? Let me tell you. There are certain axioms. We can always accept these axioms. Any basic building block of this universe must be eternal, because that is the original source. If original source is not eternal, then that cannot be source. It should not have any origin also. Second axiom. It should not have any origin, no origin. Because if it has origin, that origin would become the basic building block. And then, which can exist independently. That means any basic building block I am talking, that should be able to exist independently. I want to, many of you cannot understand what is meaning of existing independently. Many of you, you call out ajadi, we want independent, you want independent, right? So what kind of independence you have, or I have? You just think about it. As long as I identify myself with the body, I am dependent on my hunger, my thirst, my sexual desire, my fatigue. All these things, you are feeling hungry. If you are not fed, you will die. But when I say the original building block must be independent, means it is independent. That's it. It can exist without any support, eternally, unchangeable. Right? So you see in this world, anything you see, they are neither eternal nor they are independent. Of our experience, if you find something that you feel that exists within your observation, and you think that it looks like eternal and looks like independent, then put in the chat box. Put in the chat box. Now, after a few slides, I am going to see your answer to my first question. And this is my second question, but I'm going to ask you another question. That's a very important question, but this is a second question. If in your observation you find something that looks to you eternal as well as independent, then please let me know. Okay? And something independent, what does it mean? That also has to be understood. And this building block must have all the properties that are seen in the universe, and it must have properties that are not visible within this manifest universe. That means any building block we are talking about, if it makes up this universe, then whatever property that we have in the universe must be derived from that original building block. Okay? Like, for example, if your seed doesn't have a particular property and you place that in the soil, and the tree will come out and it will have a different property, it is not possible. A mango seed can only give birth to a mango tree, and again you will get a mango seed. You from a mango tree, you are not going to get a mustard seed, right? So basically, I'm giving certain analogy to expand your thinking horizon, and we can give many such analogies. So, and more, it should have property that is beyond our materialistic experience. So these are the basic assumption underlying a basic building block. What must be the basic building block? Okay. So in 2008, yes, 2008, no, 9, 2007, 2008. 2008 in August, I was in Zurich, and I was a visiting professor in ETH in Zurich, and that time I was contemplating what is exactly that we see. We see around us some bungalows, some chairs, some table, some trees, some plants, and so what we see actually, we may see pebbles, sand particles, anything we see, what we really see. And one particular evening, my contemplation led me to understand that we see only consciousness, nothing else. And that was kind of a huge time of you can say celebration within me, because I started studying Bhagavad Gita since 1988, and then I got connected to ISKCON in 1993. And so even 2009, I didn't understand what is consciousness. Although I spoke on Bhagavad Gita, I gave many lectures. And so now I'll give you some example. Like, for example, you see, this is a paint, right? A painting, right? You see that this is a painting, right? So if you look at, within current scientific perspective, this painting is simply made up of some colors, a paper, and instrument is your pen, right? But people forget that this painting is outcome of the consciousness of the painter. So within modern science, the way we are trained, we kill the creator. We have been very good in killing the creator, because that is how we have been trained. So creator has no role. Although you see in scientific community, I don't know how many of you know one of the great scientists, Boltzmann. He's from Germany, and this Boltzmann, in his time, he was not accepted among his peers. And he entered into depression so much that he committed suicide, right? That means as a scientist, we want to claim that I am the contributor. Okay? So people must give me the due uh, my due in terms of intellectual property right. They should understand this is the contribution of Boltzmann. So you see the Boltzmann distribution, Gibbs distribution. So many people, they have kept their name in front of these whatever observation they make, and behind that, whether it is Newton's law, Kepler's law, names are there. But when we explain in the classroom, we become, we suffer from hypocrisy. Because I don't want, because when I explain a painting, it's all about colors, play of colors, and the pen or a pencil. That's it. But actually, a painting is the consciousness. It's nothing but consciousness. That consciousness got manifested through color, through pain. You can say that. Manifestation is the original motivator for the manifestation, or original driver for the manifestation of this painting is the consciousness. Okay? Or for example, you see there is a heart, there are around the heart there are coconut plant, bamboo trees, and so forth, right? So you see, this is this represents a specific consciousness, right? That means this particular heart has been designed by someone, and one could have selected, oh, I will make a heart, but I will not have any trees, right? So you won't see the tree. But in this case, this heart is surrounded by many trees because he wanted them. So nothing is so abrupt there. So when you look at this heart, it is not bricks or tiles or doors or windows. No, it is someone who wanted to feel protected. Okay? If that sense of protection, defense is not there, on earth, why people will build houses? You can as well live on the flat surface. Okay? And somebody is not a lover of beauty, he would say, okay, I just want some protection. In early days, you will see the rishis, the sages, they will dig the earth and make a cave and go inside and live there because they didn't want to spend their energy in making a house and then maintaining it, and then because they were more interested in investing their time in consciousness. So they didn't spend time. But the point is, this is also a form of consciousness. This house itself is a form of consciousness. That consciousness is representative of my defense mechanism, right? For example, you are sleeping, when you wake up and suddenly in front of your bed you see a very long dark thing. Immediately you will shout, snake, snake, snake. From where? And you will shout until you realize that this is a rope. So this house is a representative of my consciousness that I want to feel protected. Try to understand what I'm saying. These are all very, very basic concepts that people don't really think very systematically. And similarly, you look at there, this is one of our ISKCON kitchen. The Yatra parties Gopal Krishna Maharaj takes to Vrindavan, Jagannath Puri, and there will be 5,000, 6,000 devotees. And you see there is a cook. He recognizes, if he doesn't prepare this food in time, then devotees would be very disappointed because they have gone for a yatra, they have been walking, they have been listening, and he feels very obliged that these devotees are really dedicated to understand the truth, and I must cook with purity of mind. So he makes a recipe. He says, tomorrow I am going to make khichdi, right? And in khichdi, he thinks that this kind of khichdi is very, very, dear to Krishna, because Krishna in Braj likes khichdi. Krishna also in Dwaraka liked khichdi. So khichdi is something very, very uh, 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 dear. So he, based on his experience, he thinks of the ingredient: rice, dal, some matar, maybe chole, and he may add some sabji, vegetable, and but the whole idea is there. He knows that uh, the basic khichdi, the taste would come simply if you add rice and dal, but then you want to make it a little uh, fragrant, then you want to add some kadi pata or pudina or dhania pata. So he has his, and to make it a little fragrant, he said that no, I would add some desi ghee, and so all these things, they don't happen naturally. It is the cook who has been cooking, and he has the experience. He has the experience for cooking for thousands of people together. So he selects these equipment, ingredients. So first he thinks of a recipe, because if he wants to cook for 5 people, 2 people, then he can have many recipes, right? But if he has to cook for 5,000, 10,000, then probably his number of recipe would boil down, and accountable, because for large people he may not be able to cook varieties of things in a large number. So I'm giving some idea how consciousness plays a role, right? And also he has to look at, he knows that at his disposal this many utensils are there, and every utensils you can cook probably this much amount of food. All these things, people may come and just show their plate and take it, but the cook, he is planning. Tomorrow morning breakfast khichdi, he has planned it throughout the night or before the night. He has already given order to his assistant that collect these ingredients, these are things. It's all done. What happens in the morning is simply a mechanization. But consciousness has already decided what will be cooked in the early morning. So the food that you eat is not some ingredients mixed and given to you. It is the idea of the cook, his consciousness, how much he wanted to sanctify this food, what is your purity, and how much love he poured into the in cooking. Did he cook while feeling, oh, I'm feeling sick, and these people are so stupid, and they are forcing me to cook for such a long. If he has that idea, I can tell you, my dear friend, that food will be tasting something different. Then when he cooks, even if he's sick, but when he knows that he has to feed 1,000 bellies, then he gets tremendous energy and he cooks. His consciousness is poured into the food, and what you are essentially eating is the consciousness. And food is simply a minor footnote to that consciousness. So this is something that, and similarly, if you look at also the solar system, the universe, it is somebody's baby, somebody's idea, somebody's manifestation, somebody's consciousness. Like for example, if I have a kartal, somebody, in the beginning, right? He realized that this is going to give me a good rhythm, right? Rhythm, right? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So, and you can create many rhythms. This is a simple rhythm, I know, but then there are expert kartal players. They can make a 2-beat, 1-beat. I made 3-beat, and there are many the tal you can play in the kartal, and so there is a consciousness. Somebody who first built, or somebody who made a mridanga or a flute. These are all some conscious derivation. Later it becomes mechanized. Like once you build one car, then you can mechanize that. That's another thing. When something comes first, it is a conscious product. And this is what I realized in 2008, August, one evening, sitting in the professor quarter in ETH, and I looked in all directions. I realized I'm surrounded by not houses, not trees, not anything, but only consciousness. Consciousness temporary and consciousness eternal. And that was a time of celebration for me. And so dear friends, so whatever we see is only consciousness, and we are going to explain what is consciousness. As I have explained this slide to you, I'll just read it. As a cook, each recipe is a subtle idea at a level of conscious creation. That very subtle manifestation. Imagine, the first khichdi, who made? Think of who prepared the first khichdi or first kheer, right? So these are very basic idea, conscious creation. That very subtle manifestation is the driver to the detailed process of ingredient collection and process of cooking. So cook's consciousness matters. Similarly, as a scientist, you build a lab to carry out certain type of research in the field of consciousness, and your consciousness will drive this effort, and shape will be ultimately the shape of your consciousness only. All of you know that this is Bhava Atomic Resource Center, right? Bhava Atomic Resource Center. Vikram Sarabhai Space Research Center in Trivandrum. So these people, they actually, when India got freedom, they actually saw how India's science program, technology program, space program should continue. They are the original ideal. And today only I was reading one snapshot. I don't know how far it is true. In Trivandrum, in a sea beach, one old person, he was sitting there and reading a Bhagavad Gita. And one very young person came and met him and asked him, sir, what are you doing? And then this old person said, I am studying Bhagavad Gita. And then the young fellow, who was an he proclaimed himself to be an atheist and said, why you are wasting your time in reading Bhagavad Gita? What will you get from here? And old man looked at him, smiled, and says, what are you doing? He said that I'm going to join Baba Atomic Research Center as a scientist. I want to make a career there. And that is the time the old man got off, and then he ordered something, and then suddenly he found this young fellow. He found that he has a big car, and he looks like a very aristocrat person. And from the inquiry of those people who are there at his service, he realized that this person is Bikram Sarabhai, and he is in fact the head of Baba Atomic Research Center, in which this fellow wants to make a career. So he was completely shocked, and obviously what must have happened to him. But what I'm trying to say is that there are some key people. They drove our science program. Their consciousness mattered. What is their vision that mattered? So similarly, any creation, behind that creation there is a consciousness. That consciousness, what is the nature of that consciousness, we have to understand first. So what is this consciousness? You say there is a house in a beautiful surrounding, there are beautiful garden surrounded by pine trees, but when a thief comes or a burglar comes, these beautiful garden trees, they don't trigger any consciousness within him, because this fellow, his consciousness is that of vice. He's not triggered, right? And he's driven by a consciousness, and that consciousness and the consciousness that is being generated by the surrounding of this house are of opposite nature. I'll give you another example. How many of you seen this Delhi iron pillar? I had a colleague here in IIT Kanpur in metallurgy department. His name is Professor Bala Subramaniam, and Professor Bala had done a lot of research on this Delhi iron pillar. Normally people go to this Delhi iron pillar for photo op. They go there, they will have photo op, and then they will say, I was in Delhi iron pillar. That's it. Okay. But then Professor Bala kind of people, they go and see, Ori Baba, this pillar is 500-year-old or 1,000-year-old, but still it has no rusting. What is that? What is the property of this iron pillar that is resistant to rusting? Because any iron gets rusted very quickly. So what is the reason, right? Or for example, you look at a wall inside the house, right? Someone looks at that wall and would like to see finishing and the aesthetic value. Yet another like Sauls or Boltzmann, when they see a wall, they don't see the wall, they see the dancing molecules. So basically, what I see is my consciousness. I don't see. I think that I see iron pillar. No, I don't see the iron pillar. Someone sees iron pillar for a photo op. That is his consciousness level. Right? Someone sees the iron pillar as a scientific marvel, because that is his consciousness. So try to understand, we don't see things as they are, we see our consciousness. For that matter, a house, bungalow, car, they may become my colored glass. So my consciousness gets reflected through this colored glass. called world, iron pillar, house, bungalow, and so forth. We have to recognize this. So, um, so what is consciousness? You see, this is a very deep topic. You see, I'm going from one slide to another slide very fast because what time it is now, Abhishek Bansal? 6:40. 6:40. So, Prem Kishore Prabhu, how long I can go on?
I think the time is no, Prabhu. I think you can still continue for 15-20 minutes.
You are very generous. I was really
And
shocked. It is 6:40 and I am
yes,
supposed to finish by 6:30. So, and in fact, I have not even come to the. Okay, before I can do, can you show me some of those answers people have given? I'm stopping sharing.
okay, I will show the chat window.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you have taken from the chat window and recorded in your document or something, and then if you
No,
can.
actually, I will have to show my chat window only. So, just a minute, please. Can you see my chat window, Prabhuji?
No.
Yes.
You are showing some souvenir PDF.
Okay. So, but
Can you do that, Abhishek Bansal? Okay, here Abhishek, my student would do.
okay, okay, right, then it's okay. Oh,
Okay, let me do that then.
yes, please.
So I'm sharing it.
I said, okay, so let me continue because we are running short of time and Abhishek is collecting it. So let me continue. So
Yes, Prabhuji, I think you should continue.
what is consciousness? There are so many levels and experience at the level of senses and body, right? Hunger is a manifestation of consciousness. Thirst, sexual attraction, fatigue, right? Similarly, it can be an experience at the level of mind, desires to become a doctor, to become engineer, to become an actor, to become an artist, happiness, distress, success, failures. These are another level. Subtle. And still subtle is an experience at the level of intellect. Whether it is Marxism, capitalism, Buddhism, Vedanta. Again, this is another level of consciousness. And then an experience at the level of false ego. Indian, American, Hindu, Muslim, Christians, male, female, white and black. And this is this list is countless actually. So you see that we have an experience and we have different level of experience. Experience at the level of senses and body, level of mind, level of intellect, level of false ego. And also we may have an experience beyond all these four categories, which I have not listed because that is something very, very tough to talk about. Okay. So, say this topic requires a lot of you are okay. So this is sign language by sign. And a sign is also language. You didn't understand anything. Convey to symbols. We all would like talk through signs, gestures, emotion, body language. Okay. So I got your answers. So basically, you are talking about gesture, symbol, sign language, body language. That's all. Emotion, expressions. That's it. So can you come out of this? Allow me to now ask the second question. Okay. My second question is, I asked you a question. When I asked you a question that made you to think, right? So my question is, in what language you started thinking? Is that question clear to all of you? I asked a question that made you to think, and you have put out that in chat window. So when you started thinking, did you use some language to think? That was my question. So please write down your answer. Okay. So let me again share.
So the participants cannot send the host, so they please submit their answers on public. So somebody else is displaying, so not the host. So please display on the public and for everyone.
कुछ change करो कुछ. Did you change something? Okay. So my point is, when I say everything is a consciousness, a machine is also a form of consciousness. Living organism is also a form of consciousness. But then there is a level of consciousness. Machine represents dull consciousness, and living organism, they represent active consciousness. One is living, the other is dull. Both are form of consciousness. As I told you, everything is consciousness. Everything is consciousness. Nothing. From watch to computer to everything is manifestation of consciousness. But you can see that, for example, any living organism and a machine, you can see some distinction there. There is an experience of hunger, fear, sleep, sexual desires in living organism. Machine don't have. Living organism can self-replicate, machines can't. Living organism can be creative, machines may not. You can find. That means when I say levels of consciousness, that means there is consciousness. Whether even a body is a machine. Okay, whether it is a mosquito body, whether it is a cow body, it is a human body, these are also machine. Okay, but this machine and the machine like automobile, machine like ATM, money transfer, automatic carrier. What is for full form of ATM? Automatic automatic teller machine, whatever. So this is everything is a form of consciousness, but one is passive, the other is active. Okay, and some speciality is there. So that is what I was talking about, levels of consciousness. Okay, I have shown these videos. I think that I will skip this. Let me, because I don't have a lot of time now. So levels of consciousness. First is inert matter, car, bungalow, bank balance. These are objects of material consciousness of the living organism. Okay, car, bungalow, bank balance. These are also form of consciousness, and these form of consciousness are object of consciousness for living organism. Right? For example, a bee. For bee, the sweet which is stored in every flower is the object of consciousness. Right? Every flower has some sweet within it, and B searches for it. So, no, I'm just giving. Then we have living matter. I'm going very fast. I didn't explain the background, but I'm going very fast. So living matter, again, it has three categories, three level of consciousness. Mode of goodness. So those who are in mode of goodness, normally they get up early morning. They take bath at 6 o'clock, at least before 6 o'clock. And they take 3 times a day bath, at least 2 times a bath, 3 sandhya. And they eat sanctified vegetarian food. So that, and in mode of goodness, you ask question like, what is consciousness? What we are, what is the basic building block of the universe, right? And then there is a consciousness that is mode of passion. Okay, in mode of passion, basically you figure out they are driven by, the mode of passion is driven by kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, mascharya, lust, greed, anger, envy, pride, illusion. Okay, and then the third level of consciousness is the mode of ignorance. So basically, in mode of ignorance, it is mostly illusion and envy, anger. And then, according to Bhagavad Gita, the pure consciousness, it has 2 categories, Shara and Akshara. Dvavimau purusau loke, Shara Akshara chayeva. Sharaha sarvani bhutani, kutostho aksharam uchyate. So Akshara means there are tiny living entity, tiny spiritual spark, which we call jiva. And their Akshara means they are always fallible. They can fall down. They can fall down within the material world. They can also fall down in the spiritual world. That's why they are Akshara. And then there is Akshara. Akshara is the absolute consciousness. That is the source of everything. So that Akshara is the basic building block of everything that exists. That is the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. If you go to the Bhagavad Gita, it's the Akshara, pure consciousness. That is the basic building block of everything that exists. Okay, so this is a very profound subject. So you say, if you are in mode of goodness, you can ask such question. Who am I? What is matter? What is absolute truth? What is Brahman? Does God exist? Those whose consciousness, the material consciousness, as purely mode of passion or ignorance, they cannot ask such question. If you are able to ask such question, that means your consciousness level is much bigger, much superior. Okay. So if you see, as of now, I had not talked about Bhagavad Gita. From the previous slide, I started talking about Bhagavad Gita. So I talked about level of consciousness. And Bhagavad Gita talks of 2 kinds of experience. One is bodily experience. The other is spiritual experience, experience within the self. So that is why Krishna tells Arjuna, that you are an Atma. Being an Atma, you should follow your dharma. The dharma of Atma is to follow Paramatma. And Krishna is the Paramatma. And Krishna is directing Arjuna to fight. So Arjuna must fight if he goes by the dharma of Atma. Then Krishna says, you are a Kshatriya. That is your bodily designation. Kshatriya means Kshat Trayate. That means you should be able to give protection to others. So if you really want to, if you, as a Kshatriya, your job is to fight. You cannot run away from the fight. A Kshatriya must establish what is virtue. So if you look at that, then also you must fight. In both ways you must fight. So we have bodily experience, and this bodily experience comes from 5 different perceptual spaces: sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. And body is arranged in a specific manner from gross to subtle, which makes a living body look different from inert matter. This is a very profound subject. You say, when I hear the subject matter, I hear, right? One hearing is a gross hearing, right? That is called noise. Gross hearing, vaikhari, that is noise. That only you hear at the level of senses. And then you go to madhyama. That means you become, you go supra, you situate yourself in supramundane level, and in your mind you hear. And then you enter into the level of pashyanti. Normally, all classical raga experts, they are supposed to be at the level of pashyanti. And then when you hear in self, that is called para. That means this same body, how you improve your consciousness or you raise your level of consciousness, you will have a different type of hearing. And you must know, hearing is the only tool by which you can know everything that is knowable. So that is a topic related to consciousness I have not described, but try to understand, when you look at this body, you don't contemplate on the body, how this body is arranged from subtle to the gross, and only you are concerned about the gross body. That is the sign of mode of ignorance. You want knowledge, you have to transcend your body to mode of goodness, and from mode of goodness to pure goodness. Okay? And then there is a divine experience. Pure consciousness is that which is Satchidananda, and our consciousness lies beyond our both gross and subtle bodies. Okay? So when I see a boy and a girl, I don't see the body of a boy, body of a girl. I see the soul. That is real seeing. But I am not qualified in that. Right? So I am going to skip many of this. Pleasure and pain are part of bodily consciousness. Many times people ask me this question, what about anesthesia? What does anesthesia? Anesthesia cannot block my consciousness that I am. Anesthesia only blocks my material consciousness or life symptom. Okay? So there are so many ways people can look at things. So the more important thing is that you want to become a good scientist, good leader. You need to be situated in divine experience. Then only you can lead. According to Bhagavad Gita, whether you want to become a mother, father, teacher, whatever, you must aspire for divine experience. You must have divine experience. Then only you can lead the world. So what happens when you have divine experience? You become detached from the matter, because in divine experience you are self-satisfied. You do not experience lust, greed, anger, envy, and pride. Even in the presence of agitating objects, this is so important, right? That is, you are walking on the road, and on the road you saw a big diamond stone, and you are not at all affected by it. Then you have divine experience. You are equally disposed to all living beings. You are full of joy. So these are, and I have already talked about two categories of pure consciousness. One is Kshara, the other is Akshara. Okay, and absolute consciousness is variegatedness. Although one without second becomes many for his sweet pastimes, it is completely wrong to assume that there is no activity at the level of pure consciousness. A very distant vision, and you see the example is our acharyas, they give the example of when you look at a hill from a distance, it may look like for example, when I fly from Delhi to Lucknow, I see the Himalayas, and you see only a cloud. You just see a cloud, right? So you may take it as to be a cloud, but when you go nearer, then you see these are the tree, these are the hills. But when you go enter inside that, then you will see many caves, many temples, there are many habitats, there are people living there, all those things. So absolute truth from a very distance realization may appear to be like a Brahman effulgence, but once you go deeper, you will see that it has variegatedness. Okay, so when you want to understand what is consciousness, one of the things that you can do a research is language and thought. Okay, so if there is no language and you can still be communicative, right? Which is first, thought or language? Where does meaning lie? Is the meaning driver or the inert energy? So these are all profound questions. If you start answering, then you will understand the consciousness as it is much better. Okay? And this is Professor Jan from Princeton University. He created two electronically shielded chamber. That means there is no electromagnetic wave going inside, right? That means is incommunicado. Any communication that we are, this is what I wanted also to all of you to, that is why I said, if there is no language, how you would have communicated. And Professor Jan, you can go and look at his research papers. I had met him in Bielefeld in 2005. And in fact, he invited me to come and join his group sometime, but I didn't show any interest because of certain reason. But you say that he is able to make two people, they are materially shielded, they cannot communicate together, and still they are able to communicate. These are all research. If you do this kind of research, then you will understand what is consciousness. It is not so easy to understand what is consciousness. Okay? In my lab nowadays, I have given more emphasis on, like for example, can I study a cell, an atom, a cosmos, the consciousness without language? You have to ask right question to be able to understand many things. The problem is that we don't ask right question. Tadviddhi pranipatena pariprasnena sevaya. Pariprasna. Unless you start asking right question, you will never get the right answer. you'll never understand the truth. Like one of the questions that people ask, unity of percept. You see, the brain study shows that brain processes different functions in its different part. For example, in the experience of seeing, shape is processed in one part of the brain, color is another part of the brain, location yet in another part of the brain, yet we have a unity of perception. So where does this perception take place? As of until now, science has no answer to this question. We say science, 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 science. Science cannot give this answer because we have not really studied what is consciousness. This is the biggest problem of science, within science. Okay? And because we have neglected consciousness, okay, you have so many problems. I will only put some few there. You have lot of depression, psychic patients, behavior disorder, you have environmental degradation, human society as a whole is in danger because we have neglected consciousness. So consciousness must come in the forefront of research. People must start talking about consciousness. This is something that we have to do now. If we fail, then our future generation would never forgive us. Okay? And mode of goodness is the way. And many of you, if you want to really do a research, you write to me. You have to have a master's degree or a philosophy MPhil degree, then you can do a research. So Indian music, yoga, meditation can be integrated in the CBT framework to cure our young generation. Meditation as outlined in Bhagavad Gita is the way forward to take people towards consciousness. Healthy way of life, early rise, 3 times bath in 3 sandhya, vegetarian sanctified food in a regulated way, contemplation on the self, there is a mistake there, contemplation on the self through Bhagavad Gita are some of the ways to bring in consciousness into our life. We are supposed to be conscious, but we are not conscious, we are sleeping. So this we have to recognize. So I am now concluding. Consciousness is the source of everything. That is the pure Akshara. Consciousness has 2 parts. One is Kshara, there is Akshara. Akshara is the source of everything. He is the basic building block of everything. And he is there in everything. Okay? So he is there in every atom. He is there within the universe as the soul of the universe. And it is he who makes the universe to float. So he is the basic building block, in and out. So what we need now, we need consciousness-driven education. We need consciousness-driven cow protection and organic farming and villages. We need consciousness-driven cities and universities. We need consciousness-driven family life and varnashrama system. Consciousness is the missing link, my dear friend. I don't know how good I did today. It's a big topic. Probably I spoke a lot within small time. I realize that, but if it has helped you, I will feel grateful if it is of any use to all of you. Thank you very much. So now, any question?
I would thank you, Professor Behera. So I would request participants to please put their questions in the chat window. So I have 2-3 questions. Somebody has asked that how Prabhuji saying that everything is consciousness, ? Consciousness is an inherent property of Chit Shakti and Antaranga Shakti. We are seeing Bahiranga Shakti also. So everything is not consciousness.
I explained that. Who is speaking that?
Actually, so I got a not on. So I don't know the name. Actually, I need to search.
Anyhow, I say this is a big topic. You know, it is not. I'm telling you, In 2009, I understood this is also consciousness. Yeah, many of you cannot figure out why. You see that this particular thing, it is made up of two things. One is material energy that is without form, but this is a form. This form comes from the consciousness. A pure, somewhere, someone realized that I can create bits, and he created this. Right? Later it became mechanized. But its source is consciousness. That's why it is consciousness. Consciousness, because this is a very big topic, you have to really understand. Many people don't understand matter has no form. Matter has no form. Matter takes the form because it is designed in such a way that they can become the object for the polluted consciousness. So they become object of senses. So I cannot enjoy something that is not consciousness. I am consciousness. And this is a very, very tough subject to explain. But I have given you, because nothing, you see that I explained to you the food that you cook. Your consciousness is there within that. Without that, the food is not food. Okay? So the matter originally, it is formless. It takes the form to satisfy the perverted consciousness of the deluding atmas. And that is why everything is a form of consciousness, but they are material. This can also be a form of spiritual consciousness. For example, this for me is spiritual consciousness. When I see kartal, I play bhajan. So this is for me spiritual consciousness. And here you need more interaction.
Another question is coming. So Hare Krishna. So this is from Tanisha Dhawan, I think. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, does desire comes from consciousness?
Yes.
If my concern is polluted,
My point is that I told you consciousness has different levels. One is pure consciousness. The other is material consciousness. There is three modes of material nature. So, three modes of material nature, because material nature originally is formless, qualityless. But because it attains consciousness, because the living entities, which are pure conscious entities, they are thrown into this material nature. So by the arrangement of the super soul, so material nature accepts the shape of consciousness. That becomes different dresses for the disgruntled jivas. So this is a little tough for every one of you. You have to hear again and again and again. Next question.
Thank you. So the next question is, now people are starting a lot of questions. So something is going inside. So can we define subtle consciousness through the ways of gross consciousness? Does consciousness have same definition at Vedantic manner and in today's modern science manner?
Modern science has no definition for consciousness. They don't understand what is consciousness. For modern science, BIS monitor they put, and they say you administer the anesthesia, and if you are insensitive to some hitting on your toes and like that, then you are unconscious, and if you are sensitive, then you are conscious. So that is a living symptom. In modern science, consciousness means only living symptom. They don't understand even the three modes of material nature. Three modes of material nature, they attain consciousness because super soul enters into each and every aspect of it. And super soul presents material nature to the living entities the way they want to enjoy the matter. So the consciousness in modern science, they are absolute idiots. They don't know. They don't understand it. Consciousness in India, most people don't understand it as well. Even people who have studied Vedanta, they also don't understand consciousness because of their, they try to speculate like the scientists try to speculate. Consciousness is self-revealing. Consciousness is self-revealing. You reflect upon, you live like conscious being, you will understand what is consciousness. Right? If you don't live like a conscious being, you cannot understand what is consciousness. You are a conscious being and you have to live. And that's why I told you, if you live in the mode of goodness, you will understand what is consciousness. If you don't live in the mode of goodness, you can never understand what is consciousness. In fact, in 2002 or 3, in Duisburg University, I was speaking to a group of students in Germany about consciousness, and there was an American boy studying in ETH. From early morning hour until evening, I spoke to him about consciousness. He could not understand anything. All that I did is that I have to cook some prasadam and feed him and tell him, did you enjoy prasadam or not? So you see that these are topics that you have to have, you see, how can you understand consciousness? Let me explain to you. This is very simple. By speculation, you can never understand what is consciousness. No way. Because one aspect of consciousness, that is three modes of material nature, that also you cannot understand unless you understand yourself as a pure consciousness. And that requires, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina raso varjam rasopiyasya param drishtva nivartate. You have to have spiritual experience. You have to have experience of yourself. And who gives that experience to yourself? You have to experience yourself. Okay. So that we say grace of Guru and Krishna. And that very few people can understand what is grace. Hey, what is this Guru, Guru, Guru? People speak like that. And hence they lose their qualification to understand. So you need consciousness to understand consciousness. In consciousness, you experience consciousness. Okay? So you have to work hard to understand. So I told you this consciousness has two aspects. One is Kshara, the other is Akshara. Akshara is the absolute truth, or Krishna. And Kshara is lot of Jivatma, unlimited Jivatma. Kshara is always fallible, whether here or in the spiritual world. So these are the things that I am not speaking. I am speaking based on Bhagavad Gita, it is not my theory. But I have realized, going through it, I have some experience, so I speak. Otherwise, if I don't have any experience, I am not going to speak. Next.
So another question is coming. Our pure consciousness is spiritual. How it gets affected by something material like material modes?
Constitutionally, I am Kshara. Constitutionally, I am Kshara. Kshara means I can lose my identity. That is my composition. I'm so tiny that if I remain in touch with Akshara, then I remain pure always. And when I remain in touch with material energy, then I lose my identity. I remember my identity when I remain in touch with Akshara, my source. And I lose my identity when I remain in touch with material energy. It is like a magnet in touch with the iron for a long time. Iron also acts as a magnet. Okay? It is like that. So, by staying in association with matter, I develop material qualities.
Okay, so next question is coming. We understand that our emotions to be hormonal fluctuations and neurochemical transmissions between various sense organs and brain cells. How does consciousness exactly interact with our physiological phenomena and helps create the unity of perception?
Can you repeat that question?
Yes, I'm again repeating. We understand that our emotions to be hormonal fluctuations and neurochemical transmission between various sense organs and brain cells. How does consciousness exactly interact here?
You don't understand. Who is this person?
Vignesh Kamath.
Arey Vignesh, you go to any psychiatrist, you ask them how many depressed people you have cured. Ask them. Literally, they have not cured even a single depressed fellow. At the max, what they must have done is that they have killed probably that fellow. You know, this fellow, if they have understood all the psychological processes underlying emotion, why they only give sleep medicine, overdose sleep medicine to this depressed patient, and literally they kill them. Within science, we say, okay, if there is a dopamine, then you will feel joy. If you have this limitation of this neurotransmitter, then you will have depression. All blah, 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 blah. If they know that very correctly, why they are not able to cure depressed people? I had one depressed student in my lab who was doing PhD, and the doctor gave him sleep medicine. And finally, he came to a level where he could not even write a single page. I had to use another PhD student to write his PhD thesis. And somehow I have to make sure that he gets a PhD degree and leave my lab. And I wished him, thank you, my dear sir. This is all I can do. Because scientifically, nobody understands this psychochemical process, but we speak blah, 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 blah. This is a ridiculous thing. First of all, let me tell you. Why this is ridiculous? They don't understand, first of all. There are three modes of material nature. They are the driving force for your destiny. And then there is Atman, that you are. They have no idea. So from the level of ignorance, they try to invent science. So it is like 4 blind people, they wanted to contemplate on what is an elephant. Somebody said it is a big trunk. Somebody said it is like a snake. And this is what you will get it. You will never get a holistic picture. To get a holistic picture, you need to be situated in the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. Then you can do science, and you will do proper science. Next.
Can consciousness be created artificially in a gross matter?
Yes, that is possible only in mode of goodness. The current science and technology, they are representative of mode of ignorance most of the time. We need to transcend our science and technology to the mode of goodness. Then it is possible, if it is necessary, if time, because everything finally happens by the time. If time wants, then we can certainly design machines that would be conscious, materially conscious, not spiritual. We can't create spiritual thing. Spiritual entities are all fixed. Neither they are created nor they are destroyed. But we can establish material consciousness within. We can demonstrate material consciousness. Yes, it is possible.
So Sanath is asking, will you, sir, kindly answer this question? Thank you, sir. You said that the house is a representative of consciousness of the man who built it, but a thief sees the house through his own filter of consciousness. So how to transmit the same consciousness of the house builder to the thief? Or is it like that for proper transmission of consciousness, we have to be under the influence of same mode of nature?
Now, I told you that everything is like now somebody builds a temple. Temple is also built up, is made up of bricks, cement, steel. So also a house. But what is the difference between a temple and house? There is a difference. Temple represents a different consciousness. House represents a different consciousness. Okay. So, and as far as a thief is concerned, or each one of us, we are wearing a colored glass. What is that colored glass? Colored glass means we represent a different level of consciousness. Through our consciousness, we see things. Like people go to the temple, but they go to the temple not for illuminating themselves, but tomorrow is the exam day and they want to do well. So they want to go to the temple to make a business, right? So again, everything is coming from the absolute consciousness. And ultimately we are supposed to see the absolute consciousness through every manifestation. That is the objective of life, human life. But unfortunately, we do not want to sanctify or purify our consciousness so that we can see absolute consciousness. Anybody who is greedy to see the absolute consciousness, even a thief can see. Dasyu Ratnakara, he was a thief, but he became Valmiki, became a great poet. So, you may be of any consciousness, you come to us, we can help you to improve your consciousness. And that is why Prem Kishore Prabhu is organizing these sessions so that you can improve your consciousness.
Okay, so wonderful. Excuse me, somebody is doing what? Jyotisha Prabhu, can you stop this annotation?
Okay, one last question.
Just give me 1 minute, please.
Okay, so the last question is, and we'll stop here. So Akanksha is asking, Prabhuji, how can we make the technology in the mode of goodness so that we can develop subtle consciousness artificially? Please throw some light on it.
I had already explained in my concluding chapter, concluding slide, that we have to now develop conscious driven education, consciousness driven cow protection, organic farming, villages, cities. So if you do that, there will be big revolution. Srila Prabhupada always wanted to transform the society by bringing in consciousness, absolute pure consciousness or Krishna consciousness. So, and it is doable. If all of you are eager, then it can be done. There is no doubt about it. So, first, I was telling recently that I have a good friend in IIT Mumbai, Dr. Ganesh Ramakrishna. He is in IIT Mumbai. They have a Gausala, and in that Gausala, the cows have enough grazing land because the IIT Mumbai has a lot of forest, and so they followed some, I think, Susruta or Charaka Samhita or something like that, and there is a medicine for Sannipata. Sannipata means pneumonia, and this COVID pandemic is creating pneumonia. If you get affected by COVID, you get pneumonia. And they've made that medicine from Panchagabya. Panchagabya means cow urine, cow ghee, milk, cow dung, and cow cud. From this Panchagabya, they prepared a medicine, and with the help of Bhaktivedanta Hospital, they actually made one medicine called Ayur Koro. And within 2-3 days, people are getting cured. And they have a clinical test and everything. And recently I also had a very nice experience. Someone told me, if you put this ghee, cow ghee, desi ghee, as a 5-6 drops in your nose before going to sleep, then you will have good rest. And I did that, and for a long time I had a very good rest because of so actually the knowledge, perfect knowledge, is already there. We have to find it. We have to find out. We don't have to manufacture anything. It's given. Some culture, it is there. So in traditional culture, it was there. We have forgotten. We have to bring it out. So there are many things that we don't really have to do. Invest a lot of energy to build in technology, science and technology in mode of goodness. They're literally there. We just have to figure out and get it. And maybe sometime we have to do little innovation, depending on the new situation, new circumstance. But that is what we are supposed to do. We are supposed to do this. Next.
Okay, so
I think we should stop here. Already 2 hours. I think
Yes.
It's a very long session. I'm very sorry for it. I took long time before, more than my. But hopefully, people.
It was really wonderful. Still 104 participants are hooking on to the question and answer and asking a lot of questions. So, dear participants, next session also would be taken by Professor Behera. So, whatever questions, whose questions have not been answered, so maybe we'll take some time, extra time to answer those questions.
Yeah, we can do that next time. And I didn't see this thought. Some of the things that I didn't speak. So maybe I will speak about the language and thought, and then probably we can take a session first, half an hour session on the questions, and then we can start the discussion, because question answer is more important than simply me speaking. Thank you.
Yes, and as announced earlier that we have this 3S conference, environmental sustainability redefined through simple life practices and integrated spirituality, on May 22nd and 23rd. So those of you who want to participate in this, so the link will be given in the chat window, and you can participate. And also you can become the ambassador. If you are from some college, you can become the ambassador of this 3S conference for propagating this mission of environmental sustainability through simple life practices and integrated spirituality. And uh, so also this so whoever, also the third announcement is, if you have some any of you want to part of ISS, you want to join the Institute for Science and Spirituality, and you want to contribute uh, in this mission of institute, then you can drop your email IDs if you have not done so, and you can give your phone number also, so that we can add you in our this Telegram group, so that you can get the further messages about the new lectures coming up. So, and also specifically, some of you are asking Professor Behera's email ID for some research kind of project kind of thing. You want to get associated with him seriously doing research on consciousness. So, put your mail ID, specifically mentioning that Professor Behera has given his mail ID in the chat window. So you can specifically writing in the message that interested for research with Professor Behera. So, and then put your, and Professor Behera, as he explained, those who are masters, at least they should be giving their mail IDs and phone number, at least give their mail IDs and write a mail to Professor Behera. And if any of you want to be a part of Institute for Science and Spirituality, again, I'm giving this message, repeating. So please drop, specifically mentioning your this educational qualification in the field of science and your interest area in the chat window, please. So, and we thank you, Professor Behera, for the wonderful session. ISS is being driven under the able guidance of Professor Laxmidhar Behera, and that's why we are able to do these kind of seminars under his guidance. So we are very thankful to his guidance and his blessings. Hare Krishna. So if somebody is asking, but I am undergraduate, I want to do research. So Professor Behera's email ID is there. So please drop a mail to him requesting him your interest and all. Then you will be suitably answered. And also the recording of this lecture will be uploaded on the ISS Institute for Science and Spirituality channel on YouTube. So you can go there and watch the previous sessions and other lectures also, and this lecture also, today's lecture also.